Hello, everyone. Joe here, broadcasting from Salch, Alaska, the Malamute capital of Alaska. Welcome, new subscribers. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to start a kind of a new series. We started out with the training, then I got kind of absorbed in stories, and so we're going to try to separate the two and have two broadcasts a week with stories, and then one or two a week for training, expedition gear, and uh, expedition prep, I guess. A lot of people don't realize that when I say expedition training, I'm talking mostly about myself, training myself. Basically, I have to be in condition to, like a long distance athlete, marathon runner. I never ride on the sled, so it's always snowshoes or skis, or when I'm traveling on the sea ice, I'm always trotting. But I rarely ride on the sled. So, plus, besides the traveling aspect of it, I have to harness 22 dogs every morning, break camp, travel all day, unharness 22 dogs, set up the camp, you know, make dinner and cook and cut firewood. I mean, every day it's about a 16-hour day. So I have to train myself for that, which I start actually as soon as I come back from my expedition in May. And by June, I'm on my bicycle and just basically training again for another expedition. So I have to stay in shape. As far as the Malamutes, I mean, their genes go back so far that they automatically muscle up in November without doing anything. But the interesting thing is, I have to train their minds for these trips. It's all psychological training. And so the first 10 days of any Arctic expedition, I'm specifically training them, their minds, trying to get their minds into the game, so to speak, because things are so different in the Arctic compared to the subarctic or Fairbanks, Salta area. So it's really important that we really have to get inside their heads and reestablish and solidify that pulling is a game. I mean, that's what they live for, that's what they love, but when they get in such a harsh environment, it would be awfully easy for them to feel that it's work. And we do not want the dogs to feel that they're working. It's got to be all play. So it's quite extensive psychological training, and it takes an entirely different series to go into this, and expedition gear and traveling methods. So we're gonna split this up and get back to the White Fang movie, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that before we go on to another story. But when you watch the movie, you'll see that the team started out with 7 dogs and they slowly dwindled down to 4. And there's really no explanation why. But we had several scenes where each dog was basically caught by the wolves and they cut them out. So we had a lot of, like I said earlier in the other series, that other podcasts, that we had a lot of scenes that were never shown in the movie. But it's just the way it is. But speaking of wolves, on the scene where the Alex was attacked by the wolves, he had the big fire going and trying to keep the wood from him. Then they attacked him in the morning. That was interesting because what they did to get that scene, that was actually a stunt man. Actually one of the animal trainers dressed up like Alex, and they took little pieces of meat and had little pockets in that clothing, and they put that meat on that inside those pockets so the wolves would come up and try to, you know, basically get the meat off them. They were trained to do that, so they were trained not to bite the stunt man. But it was a interesting way of doing that, And there's all kinds of little tricks and secrets about that movie, that behind the scenes, that really fascinating. But one of the funny things that happened in that movie was between me and, actually, Klaus is his real name, but I always call him Alex because he played the role of Alex. Um, so Klaus and I always shared this wardrobe, the upper part, just the jacket, the white jacket, or the black jacket, I'm sorry, black jacket. And so when he did his speaking part, I gave it to him and he went and did it. And then when he was done and they needed me go in there and do the rest of his scene, he would give me the jacket. I'd put it on and go in. Well, one day, it was towards the end of the day, in the afternoon, and we were wrapping things up. And I did the last scene, so I had, the dog treats in my pockets, which I used raw meat for dog treats, and I had the pockets filled with this raw meat. And finally, the director said, "Cut." He wrapped it up. So I had the jacket. So I took it to my dressing room and hung it up and went home. And in the morning, Alex Klaus, I guess we'd call him, his real name. Klaus has scene to do first thing in the morning, and so he grabbed that jacket and put it on and rushed on set and started doing his speaking part. And he kind of stopped. And he turned his face took on quite a different look, and he pulled something out of the pocket, and it was old green slimy meat. And I tell you what, I thought he was going to throw up, and so that was quite a upset issue with the director, wasting time. Every minute to them was like $1,000. So we had to rush and get him his hands washed off and clean out the pockets, and so he could go back to work. But that was pretty funny, I thought, anyhow. And Klaus thought it was kind of funny too. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of different ways. We just had a blast. It was kind of like working on just old construction company guys. They were just trying to get their job done, remember their lines, and not screw up. And the director was the boss, and so we are just trying to get by and keep him happy and get through the day. The days were long. 12 hours a day, every day, shooting scene after scene after scene. I mean, we'd shoot the same scene 12 different times, only different angles. So you just get bored stiff doing the same scene constantly. But that's the movie business. But one of the things I've always thought about in that movie while traveling in the Arctic is that casket that we hauled around on that dog sled for the movie. It resembled two caskets I found once out in the middle of nowhere. And that was quite a story. It was during a blizzard, and I was traveling along the sea ice, and I saw the blizzard coming, and I wanted to, basically duck for shelter. So I headed inland where I could find some deep snow, preferably a snowdrift, and dig in. So I'm halfway under the snow and put my tent over the hole I dug to keep out of the wind as much as possible. And the funny thing is, I found a beautiful snowbank. I didn't know what caused it because the land is flat up there. It's totally flat, and just a little willow sometimes you can call it a snowdrift. But there was this big snowdrift. I said, "Boy, what a great find! Really got lucky." So I dug in, big hole, then put my tent over the hole so I could crawl down underneath the depth of the snow, where that way when the wind blew you wouldn't be totally frozen. You get cold, but it kind of helps protect you. And so and usually the blizzards last up to 3 days. And so I think that blizzard was just like a day and a half, maybe 24, 30 hours. You can't really do anything. You can't go outside. You can't see anything. The dogs just hunker down, let themselves be buried in snow, and they're happy as clams. They always gain weight during blizzards because they're just not doing anything and they're laying around just being lazy and staying warm. So, but finally, when the blizzard stopped and I dug my way out of the tent, and there, right before me, when I stuck my snow shovel into the snow, I heard clunk. It was wood. I thought, oh, great. Must be maybe some firewood or something, drift log that came in from the sea, from the Arctic Ocean. And I got digging around, it looked like a board. I got digging more, and it was huge. I got digging, it was a casket, and there were two of them. And I smoothed off the snow from the tops of them. They were carved, obviously the person who buried the loved one couldn't spell, and he carved some what he best he could in it. Apparently, some name that probably an Eskimo, or who knows? Maybe it was from from a whaling ship. But the wood was built. The caskets was built out of oak. So apparently, whoever it was had some oak lumber in their sleds, probably going to use it for firewood. And they get the oak from wrecked ships. I mean, there was a lot of wrecked ships in the 1890s up in the north of Alaska and the Arctic Ocean, and there is ship lumber everywhere up there. You walk the beach and there's old ship lumber. I mean, oak, you name it, just piles and piles of it. I don't know how many ships had wrecked up there, but apparently quite a few. So here I was, camped right next to two caskets, and still nailed shut, perfect condition. They're at least probably 100 years old, and I never opened them. I just left them be where they were and let them rest in peace. Another interesting thing I thought about the movie was, they tried to make everything authentic, and even the books that Skunker in the movie had torn up to start a fire. Those books were actual 1890s books, which is incredible. And I couldn't believe the turn of burning them, but they did it for the movie. And the sled that we used, they actually had two of them they built, and they were exact replicas of sled that they found that were built in the 1890s, and they're huge sleds, huge, 12, 14 feet long, and they were heavy too, about 250 pounds. That was quite a load the dogs were hauling around. Quite a load. And of course, White Fang, I can't sign off without giving him a credit. Jed, who played White Fang, he played in multiple other movies like The Thing and Natty Gann and a bunch of others. I mean, he was such a beautiful dog with a beautiful temperament. And, he's probably mostly Malamute, typical Malamute temperament that we all know who have Malamutes. The movie was a lot of fun, but during the movie, I was offered other movie jobs, and of course, I turned them down. But I did accept quite a few documentaries and TV commercials and whatnot. Just small stuff. I'm just not I'm just not inclined to be stuck in front of a camera, and I'm a terrible actor. So, but I loved working with animals in the movies. That was a lot of fun. But to do that for a living, you have to basically live in California or something like that, and I had no interest in doing that ever. I would just rather work with the dogs and being stuck with a camera in my face all the time. So, and about the dogs, a lot of my dogs were rescues and discarded, um, because they're too mean, like Maneater and Bruiser, But it's funny that you look in the movie; those two dogs were probably the closest to the actors, and petted the most than any other dog in the movie. So it just goes to show, yeah, how we can help some of these discarded dogs, like in our animal shelters and the rescues. And they're just full of dogs, especially in Alaska, because the dog food prices are just skyrocketing, and people just can't afford to keep their dogs anymore. Um, so there's a lot of orphan dogs out there. But it goes farther than the dogs. We need to think about our human brothers and sisters. I mean, look at the homeless. Oh my gosh. In every big city, there's thousands of homeless. Um, and I hate to see it. Even in Fairbanks, when it's 20, 30 below, homeless are on the streets. It really tears your heart up to see that. I wish there was more we could do. And some of those people, all they need is a chance. Now that we're getting close to Christmas, it's really heart wrenching to see those folks out there on the streets. I try to talk to them and be respectful and greet them, and I found it really sparks up their day. It makes them feel good. It seems like, but they need a lot of help, and I think the most powerful thing we can do is pray for them, and of course, don't forget to give to local charities. But today we're going to wrap this up, and the next one will be on training and expedition gear. So stay tuned and see you next time. God bless.